I spent 3 years making a tarot deck. Okay, so I'm going to show you the entire behind the scenes process of making it, while I also sort of walk you through the cards and all the changes that I made, because there's lots of changes. It's called Mixed Signals because it's made with mixed media, so it's made in traditional art and in digital art, because I wanted to combine our very physical and digital lives into a fun little process. So the first thing I had to do was just make a checklist. Maybe it's unsurprising to you that the first thing you have to do when you start a giant new project is to make a checklist. So I just listed out all the cards that I needed to draw, and then I started reading this book, Queering the Tarot, which was a gift from my friend. I will admit that I was totally not into tarot at all before I started this project. And the only reason I did it was because two of my very close friends are like deeply into tarot, and I was like, I'm clearly missing something if two people who I like consider members of my family, like my chosen family, and are like brilliant, amazing humans, are like into this as like a fun thing to do. I was like, oh, I gotta get in on this train. And for me, learning a thing means doing arts, because that's the only way I'm gonna learn anything. Is to make arts. So I, as I was making each card, I would like read through what Queering the Tarot said about the card, and then I would just draw something physically. Now, not every card started with a physical drawing, but most of them did. So all of the major arcana, all of the ace through 10, so all the number cards, all of those started with physical drawings. And then I wanted to do digital art, but I thought to do an even more mixed up aesthetic for the court cards. In my deck, I've completely taken out kings, queens, knights, and pages. I'll talk about that in a second. But for the court cards, I made them all on my phone. So I had to use only mobile app software to make the court cards. So they have a slightly different aesthetic than the number cards in their set. So after I like did so many draws, so many revisions, so many like, I hate this, I gotta do it again, so many trying out different things. Because when I started, I didn't have a specific. I should stop and say, if you're interested in buying the deck, link in the description. I should say that, right? I've never made a product before, and I am horrific at marketing. Anyways, yeah, you can purchase the deck in the bio. Anyways, going back to arts. So yeah, it took me a real long time of just like playing around and sketching and trying to figure out like what I was interested in and how to represent the different like meanings of the cards. And over the course of this process of trying out different materials and different representations, is how I got to the changes that I made to the deck. So, first of all, we're going to put major arcana to the side for a second. First of all, pentacles is a really stupid word, and I don't like it. And at first I thought, oh, I can just replace pentacles with money, but it means more than just money. It means like all of the like physical materials of our lives. And because we're like so computered, and like this deck was specifically about our like physical and digital lives, I was like, stones. I want to think about like silica. I want to think about carbon. I want to think about like materials of the earth. And so the pentacles became the stones, and the stones have this kind of pink, green, purple aesthetic to them. Here's the 6 of stones. Oh, I had to draw so many hands for this deck. So if you're a person who draws and appreciates how difficult it is to draw lots of hands, I'm here for you. Lots of fingers. Hands interacting with stones. Stones as like a place where light emanates. Since you're watching this on a stone emanating light right now. Good to think about. And then also sort of like building stacks of stones in the 10. So, and then I will show you the stones. The court cards were the second big change. So instead of page, which is like a person who sets out on a new journey, I have learner. And the learner, each of the suits has a learner. So this is the learner of stones. And you can see like the asteroid and like the things that learn about asteroids become like the representation of the learner. And the fighter of stones, I really like this like collision and like watching a collision like through like imaging. There's these like imaging marks on the side. The maker of stones, really getting that robot hand in there. And the speaker of stones, the fighter is the knight, is a person who like is an agent of change, is a person who is an activist who protests, like that kind of energy. Then the maker is the queen becomes the maker. The queen is the person who like builds and figures out and like literally makes. So the queen becomes the maker. And then the king becomes like the speaker, like the one holding the microphone, the one holding the megaphone, the one like communicating externally, as opposed to the maker, who is a more like concerted, like problem solving collaborator. In my energy, I would be a maker. I don't know about you. Tag yourself. Are you a maker, a speaker, a fighter, or a learner? We're all those sometimes, but I'm definitely a maker, not a speaker. Okay, so another big change is that there are no swords. Not because I felt like we live in a world free of violence. Of course we don't need swords. That's ridiculous. Of course we live in a world full of violence. But I think, especially because of the way that our lives sort of happen online and the way that people see us through words, I replaced swords with words. It's only a 1-letter change, for my purists. But so Ace of Words, sort of the pencil, the pen really like coming to the forefront as the aesthetic. And actually this aesthetic happened before I changed the word. I was drawing pencils. I was drawing pens like in forms of conflict before and like as weapons before I actually was brave enough to change the suit from swords to words. A lot of the fights that we see like online happen over like specific use of words, but a lot of the violence that we see like in our society is perpetuated through laws, and like the way that we use words to perpetuate violence in society was like really important to me when I was making this deck. Words as creative tools, but also words as like the way that you try and control other people and other people's bodies. I just realized these are probably all going to be backwards. I don't know. Maybe I'll flip the video. Words as fences, words as control devices. I dropped a card somewhere. Hold on. Come back, friend. Words as ways that we like transform ourselves, especially like as trans people. Changing names, changing pronouns. Words are like a vehicle for change. And the fight over like whether or not you call something a genocide, for example, is an example of the ways that words are sort of drivers in our lives. So again, we have learner, fighter, maker, and speaker. But while they have some color in common with the number cards for words, like they have some color similarities, these were all done on my phone. So it was important to have some that had like both the like big fancy computer aesthetic of like being able to use Photoshop or Illustrator, and then also some that just like I had to do this, on a tiny little device, especially because the cards are very similar in like size to holding a phone. So it's important that like at least some of the cards had phone aesthetics in them. So we have sort of like a learner of words who's like using tweezers to pick out something. We have, my cards are out of order. The fighter of words who's sort of like using scissors to like draw lines to like make cuts. The maker of words. And for this aesthetic, I was using these sort of like sharp points to bring back a little bit of that like sharpness of the sword. So here we have like these thumbtacks. The maker of words really like putting up, white sheets of paper, bringing in the aesthetic of words. And then the speaker of words using a sewing needle and the sort of like more dancerly way of using the paper. So having these two paper aesthetics as the maker and the speaker. Okay, so wands I kept. I did feel like wands was a still like really relevant. Cups also, I kept cups. I just changed swords to words and pentacles to stones because I felt like they made more sense for like our current moment. Wands. All of the wands are wood. I was really like, I wanted to think about things growing, about trees. So all of the wands cards are made from different kinds of wood. Wood with their shadow, wood growing, wood like coming into a whole tree, wood breaking, wood used in fire, said those out of order, wood like starting to break and tear down, having like a whole life cycle of wood used to build, wood shattering, building fires with wood, like all the different ways that fire and magic come from the living bodies of plants. And humans really as this like dependent species on the plant ecosystem. Like we eat them, we build with them, we understand the world only through like the sugars that they make that run our brains. Like plants really as like the source of magic and the source of like wands and fire and like the source of humans. That's where we really come from, is from plants. So I wanted to bring that in the wands. Large stack of wood that is very hard to hold up, very tens energy. And then again, with the court cards, all made on my phone, the learner is sort of like investigating plants through a lens. The fighter is hiding their stick. You'll see a stick in the background, hiding the stick behind their balloons. The maker is sort of using wood, using sticks to recreate or represent ecological environments. And then the speaker really outside with plants in a living environment with people. You'll see like the megaphone there, the speaker of wands. All right, one more suit, and then we'll look at the cards I changed the most were sort of the major arcana. I tried to keep the vibe, but some of those words were just not vibing. But cups, Ace of Cups, we got our cozy vibe. We have our vessels. We have the way that that cups sort of act in human society, how they feed us, how they bring us water, what the materials that they themselves are made of to shatter, and sort of trying to reflect some of the stone's energy, where like the light, the cups coming, they're being the bringers of light, and like party energy, celebrations, accumulations, the winning of races, and like sort of literally like bubbling over kind of like exuberance that cups the water has. And then for the court cards, some of the same similar colors, but a more like muted palette. And these are all my hands. And literally interacting with water and thinking of water the same way that we are born from plants, that plants are born from water. And so we have the Learner of Cups, who's just starting to like touch and interact with the water. We have the Fighter of Cups, who's like redirecting the energy of the water. The Maker of Cups, and sort of conceptualizing, ideating, and then using their hands to create the vessel. And then the Speaker of Cups, who sort of presents the finalized form, sort of presents this this form to the world. All right, now we get to do the majors. So, the Fool. I took all the thes out because it felt like completely unnecessary to have the. So I kept the numbers because I have a deck by another creator that doesn't have the numbers on it, and I find that very frustrating. That I can't look it up via the number. So I made sure to keep the numbers, especially because I was going to change a bunch of the names. So we have our Fool, and you can see like this hand-drawn thing. And you saw that earlier, like when I was scanning things in, like these hand-drawn drawings were scanned in, and then I took photographs of my hands in different positions, and that's how I drew the hands with references. We have our Fool. Magician I kept, and I really like this reaching out for the magic. The Seer. A lot of the like gendered and hierarchical religious language that is in the Raider White deck I found a little tedious, but I did want to keep some gendered language. Because not everyone is non-binary like me and thinks that gender is like a weird game everyone else is playing that I don't play. I did keep Empress and the Emperor. You'll notice a little bit of targeting, a little bit of like that patriarchal energy is still there, because I didn't want to take out like dark. I didn't want to take out the darkness or the shadow from the deck, but I did want to make it feel like a more realistic shadow to my life. So the guide. So the difference between the seer and the guide, sort of like someone who shows you particularly like how to do something, really like takes you through a process, versus someone who is like maybe like more disconnected from people and is like seeing specifically. And then we have the Lovers, which I have a little swipe right dating app reference in this box here. But you'll see like the faces merged together with a bunch of like tubes and things. The Traveler is, who's ever been in a chariot? Nobody. And if they have, they're a cosplayer who are really good at chariots. Or LARPer? Whatever, one of those. So I wanted to have the Traveler, but the chariot has a slightly like domineering energy. So our Traveler is taking steps over other people. This is hands down my favorite card in the deck. This is Strength. again, this is my hand, and it is drawn with one of the forearm crutches that I used for literally years, while I was like doing physical therapy and like getting new neurologists and all these things. Like this card, this idea of like not just getting back up, not just like in the original card, it's like tearing open the mouth of a lion, like that idea of strength, but no, like strength is not overcoming wildness. Strength is not getting back up again. Strength is knowing when to ask for help and when to rely on structures of help and when to like build structures of help for like you and your community. Like this card is me. Like this card really means a lot to me. Okay. Oh, I got a little bit emotional with that one. Hermit, who sort of like is drawing the world into themselves, but sort of also standing apart and having this sort of like bigger vision. The Wheel. This is my little phases of the moon. Justice. This is the other card other than Strength that I am like deeply in love with. I really wanted the raised fist of justice, but taking an action of like breaking the chain of violence. And I just really like the way this came out, looking both hand drawn and very like interfacey, because I love interfaces. The Hanged, or in my case Hanged, is this like looking up into this void, has this very like sort of beautiful, peaceful face, the way that the original does. And then this one also combines a sort of more flat, interfacey, like emoji style art with like a more hand-drawn aesthetic. Where are we? Oh, Death. And this is like a beautiful dance between this death figure and this sort of skeleton. Temperance. This one is probably too small to see here, but on the little book on the bed inside of Temperance is actually the original Rider-Waite card design. I put it in the book to sort of like give it a place to retire, because I think the deck needs to be retired. Problematic appropriation of things. But sort of like a place. This word is not my favorite, but it felt like if I gave it this sort of like place of rest inside of a storm, it would sort of shape the way that the word came across. And then here's my shadow with my gripping hand and my sharp little teeth. And this is my tower, which is sort of like holding the rubble, holding the flame, holding the fire of change, and being able to like stay present in moments of catastrophe. There's my star, very Milky Way, the moon, and the sun. And this one was fun doing this little solar flare. These two I think are the most interfacey of all of them. So we have Judgment, and I put in these like breaking hearts and thumbs up and hearts and things, the same way that you would see like reactions on a live stream. And then the World, and I put in these little references to software design, because I really wanted to like bring home the idea that when you use the deck, your life, your whole life, your online life, your offline life, like all of those things are sort of included in the milieu of this deck. So I made a thing. It took so long. It took 3 years, partially because after the first draft, my collaborator, who's a tarot reader, Oxmina, they took the deck like all over the place and did readings with it. and got tons of feedback on changes I could make and improvements both in readability, legibility of the actual text, what words we were using, tons of the changes like to the for swords becoming words, like that happened in that process of like iteration, like with a tarot reader, which was so cool. And now it exists. So yeah, it's very like, queer, disabled, trans loving art object. And I would love for you to have it if you would like. It is the first time I have ever sold anything ever after like a decade on YouTube and decades as an artist. I'm old now. Wow. So yeah, I hope that it finds its way into the hands and hearts of people who need its presence and who want to interact with art in a way where they're like building a relationship with it, because that's how I have really come to feel about tarot, is that it is a tool that you use to understand your own thoughts, to sort of build a relationship to a way of thinking through like, how randomization and this energy and like all of these arts and can like be with you in times when you're questioning, when you're, feeling lost, because I felt lost many times while making this and I got there in the end. And so, yeah, I hope that it can be with you when you're feeling lost too. Okay, bye.